Welcome to In Light of the Gospel. This is episode 84. For those of you that know me personally, you probably know that I design houses and draw blueprints, and I've been doing that for quite a number of years. About 13 or 14 years ago, I started working and designing houses with Tony Wall. Today's guest is his oldest son, Riley. When I first met Riley, he was just a very young boy, and I didn't really pay him a whole lot of attention. He was just someone, when I met with Tony, he was there in the background. But in the last couple of years, since I moved on my own with my design business, I've been dealing with Riley pretty consistently. And then now him and I actually train jiu-jitsu together on Tuesdays. I take my kids there and we roll around on the mats and enjoy our time together. But Riley and I have become pretty good friends, and it was a real joy to be able to interview him and see how someone like him, who didn't come from a life of dark sin or even deep religion, he just had to grow up in a Christian. He got to grow up in a Christian home where his parents both loved the Lord. His dad shared the gospel with people regularly. And then he had to kind of figure out where he belonged in that. So he took a while. He kind of resisted the urgings and the promptings and the conviction of God for quite a number of years. He got saved around 15 and experienced something he hadn't experienced before. He was a happy kid before, and now he experienced the joy of the Lord. And he kind of differentiates between those two, the joy and the happiness. But then he got married during COVID, and it was a pretty crazy time for most of us, and for him in particular, and then struggled with bitterness for a couple of years, partially because of the whole COVID nonsense, and partially because of a church split and all kinds of things going on in his life, and he had to try to figure out his way, struggled with bitterness, and finally came to freedom in that, and seems to be really experiencing true joy and happiness and contentment knowing the Lord. So I just think you'll get a lot out of this conversation, and I think you'll be very blessed by it. Many people, especially who grew up in a Christian home, will probably be able to identify with Riley's story. And so again, I just thank you for tuning in. It's a real blessing and a joy for me to be able to have these conversations, and I'm glad that you guys are participating and enjoying them as well. So share the video with somebody that you know that might be affected or blessed by it. And thanks again for tuning in. It's interesting how reflecting on your own upbringing and your thought process and what brought you to where you are, how much it can do to you.
Yeah, and especially because, when you get saved, you share your testimony either in church or in front of people who you meet, and you're super excited. It's like, I just got saved, right? And then, I don't want to say you lose that, but since I'd gotten saved, there was one time that I actually went to share my testimony at a group. I specifically went there because I was asked to share my testimony, and I was a young Christian at that time. But other than that, there isn't very many huge opportunities where, and even if, let's say, you're sharing with somebody, even if you're sharing the gospel with somebody, you might brush over your testimony briefly, but not where you actually go into detail.
You're digging in. What's happened here?
I'm it really helped. As I'm thinking about it, as I'm praying about it, as I'm talking to my wife, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember this? Right? And she's telling me, don't forget this and don't forget that. I feel like it's caused me lots of encouragement. It's caused me to reflect a lot, and actually looking back and seeing how the Lord worked, where if you keep moving forward and you keep pressing on, that's great, right? But then all of a sudden you take that time to reflect, and then you're like, wait, yeah, the Lord has brought me here. The Lord helped me here. The Lord did different things here. Whereas maybe in your moment, in your day-to-day, you don't realize how much God's actually involved in your day-to-day life. And then you look back on certain things and like, oh yeah, God help me with that. God help me with that. God help me with that.
I remember one time saying, I was only a Christian for a year or two maybe, and I said to John Banman, who we've talked about before a little bit, or at least his name has come up, we were singing that song, Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. And I thought, I don't think that's true. I haven't proved him. There's so many things I'm not doing yet, and I'm not really, passionate enough and whatever. And he's like, Dan, look, who were you 2 years ago? Oh yeah, I was hardcore, zealous, anti-Christian. I was a very pharisaical type of very religious person. Now I've gotten freed from pornography. I'm rejoicing in the Lord. I'm reading my Bible. Where did that come from? Of course I'm proving Jesus o'er and o'er. Right? And so it does a lot to reflect. And then you look at the Old Testament. There's a lot of times where you set up this monument, put this pillar here. Why? So you can look back and remember
And
where you
reflect and
came
remember.
from,
Right.
who you were, how God saved you. And so sharing testimonies and stories is pretty impactful.
Yeah, I definitely encourage anybody to do it.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you've been a Christian for a while and you haven't had the opportunity to do it, it's definitely it's
And
encouraging.
then each story, and this is the cool thing about this podcast, is each story affects somebody else totally differently, right? Like I've had guys on here who were into drugs and pornography and abuse and all kinds of stuff. Then I've had guys that were just kind of good guys and religious maybe, but more or less stayed out of trouble. Like you said, JP's story had an impact on you, right?
Yeah, it really connected with me. I actually haven't even reached out to John yet, but I want to reach out to him and just be like, hey, I really appreciated his testimony. There was a couple of things where I was like, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. I can relate to that. But then, and I've listened to quite a few of them that you have on here, and my testimony a little bit where I didn't come from the drugs and the alcohol and the party life and any of that, because I was born and raised in a Christian home, right? I experienced as regularly as Dad could. We were reading the Bible as a family. Obviously, you know all the stories from when you're growing up and different things like that, right? So I didn't experience that salvation experience, right? Because on the outward, things may not have looked much different before being saved and after.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that was one of the reasons I even asked you to come on. I was talking to my daughter the one day, and we're like, we got all these cool testimonies of people who came from serious religion or serious sin, and now they're saved. What about people like us? Like she was referring to herself.
Okay.
And then she says, you should talk to Riley. We see him, we see you guys on Tuesdays regularly, you and your wife sometimes. And she knows a bit of your backstory, but raised in a good home, a family that was always involved in church and, very passionate about the gospel. Your dad was zealously sharing the gospel with people all the time. And
Absolutely.
all that.
He still is.
Oh,
he still is very open about that, especially in his business. Dad is still very, very open and free with communicating, especially when he has any kind of people with a Muslim background. Like, he definitely finds a connection with them really
right
quick.
away.
And then all of a sudden they're just like, you're religious? And Dad's like, no, I'm a Christian. And then they'll say, oh, I'm a Christian too. And it's like, okay, well, let's expound a little bit more. And obviously there's more who are more religious or more, I guess I'd say more Muslim than others, but I guess sometimes you can get Christians like that too.
Yeah.
But no, Dad is definitely still very much does that a lot in his business.
Yeah.
That hasn't gone down.
And so because you were raised in an environment like that, where your parents were both, from as early as you can remember, passionate about the things of God, whether you guys were at Summerfield Church or when you guys left and went to the Vienna Church, like there was always a lot to do about the gospel and the scriptures.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, encouraged to read my Bible every single day. Like I said, I knew all the stories. Do
you remember your parents getting saved or no?
I remember when my parents started going through, let's say, changes, like when they got rid of the TV. There was a couple different things, but not really. Because it was more, I know I was born already after when my dad had really started searching and desiring God. I don't remember much, though.
Okay. Because I met your dad like 20 years ago at North Star, and he was this big bodybuilder looking dude at the time, very strong and fit, great baseball player and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden he was talking about the Lord all the time, and the guys that used to play ball with him I was working with, and they would talk about him, and they're like, oh yeah, you don't want to talk to him now, he's one of those crazy Bible guys now, right? And so that, you would have been very young when that all took place. And then when I started working with him, he told me a lot of stories of stuff that happened back in the day. And
I think my dad had a bit of a crazier past, but none of that. I can't even see my dad like doing things like that, just because for how long I've known him being a Christian, right? I definitely have a hard time imagining my dad being like the crazy party life. But definitely appreciate him for who he is today. That's for sure. Cool.
And then obviously a lot of aunts and uncles and stuff who are all also very involved with church and
all my cousins, all my uncles and aunts, everybody I would have even like hung out with on a weekend or even day-to-day basis. I went to a Christian private school, so it was everywhere. Like
it was just obvious.
what I would call a second generation Christian, right? Where I'm not having to. God is all around in everything that I was doing, right? So many times the problem with that is, where do you see a need for your personal salvation, right?
Try describing water to a fish, right?
Right. So, and I even remember growing up, like there was a few times where my dad had asked me, it's like, as I've had either friends in church or even cousins especially getting saved and getting baptized, Riley, what's holding you back, right? And I could honestly just tell him, like, nothing.
What do you mean holding me back?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? I'm as Christian as a non-Christian gets, pretty much. But I definitely had secret sins what I would try to do is take care of them myself.
You told me you had a very sensitive conscience.
Yeah, growing up, I had a very sensitive conscience to disobeying my parents, to, like, I wasn't being mean to other kids or things like that. Like, I was always very tender-hearted. I think I still kind of am today. But yeah, very tender conscience, where even if I would do things like say a bad word, or like, I would just feel very guilty. I'm trying to think, like, sensitive conscience as far as, yes, when I did things wrong, I had a sensitive conscience, but then I didn't really acknowledge my sin. Didn't really make me feel guilty. When it happened was when I would sin, especially if I acknowledged that this is definitely sin, right? I can't remember now, but I think even in my unsaved state, I would ask God for forgiveness, and that was kind of my scapegoat.
Yeah,
it was kind of like, I know I'm going to sin, so as long as I ask for forgiveness after I sin, I'll be okay.
I had a bit of that mentality as a Mennonite growing up, just thinking, okay, well, if I sin, I'll just ask for forgiveness. Hopefully God's merciful. We don't know for sure if he will be, but we think he might be, so we just got to ask him. But I remember my dad one day when I was in my early teens, he said, you can't just keep committing the same sin over and over and over again, asking for forgiveness. Eventually he's going to have to say no, because you're still doing it, right? So then my strategy was, okay, I won't ask forgiveness again until I stop.
Oh, okay.
I know I can't stop the sin, so I'll just keep doing it, and I'll ask forgiveness later within just one time, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how we can make, like, when we're in our thoughts, we can almost think about how God's going to act, and then we act according to what we think God's going to do.
And excuse ourselves.
That's right. Oh, it's just finding justification.
So do you remember thinking about God and sin from an early age, or was it more just, well, I got to be good because that's what I'm required to be?
Well, even not just required, I definitely would have wanted. Like, it's not like I wanted to be bad. Like, I was striving to try to be good, right? But as far as, like, having any kind of conscience against sin, not really. The biggest thing that I struggled with when I was unsaved was pornography, and as long as I kind of asked for forgiveness afterwards, it wasn't like didn't have the oh wretched sinner I am, what am I gonna do? Yeah. Lord save me, right?
It wasn't crippling.
No. I continued living life. The biggest thing where I definitely realized that I am not saved versus I am saved, versus, like, comparing myself to people who were saved, was anytime there was any kind of gospel message preached. If there was, then there was definitely the heart starts pounding, your hand starts sweating, and you can feel the Holy Spirit convicting you. So then I knew that I was missing something, right? And the biggest thing that helped me kind of, I guess, see what I was missing was my first job. I worked at my Uncle Jim and my Uncle Mike, wall-to-wall construction. And I got to drive back and forth every single day with Jake Nelson, a brother from church. Fantastic brother,
but super convicting to be around.
So no, definitely. He definitely, because as I got older, I started pushing aside the reading the Bible every day.
You're like 15, 16 now?
Yeah, 15. I would have been 15, and I started pushing aside the reading the Bible every day, And I remember getting into the car the first day we were going to work, and then Jake asks me, "So what did you read in your Bible this morning?" And I'm, "What? I'm reading my Bible." I got up and I hoofed down some breakfast, and I'm nervous because it's my first day at work. I'm not. What are you talking about reading my Bible, right? And he told me every single day, "I'm going to ask you, what did you read in your Bible today?"
I'm going to hold you accountable.
That's right. There was a couple times I cheated a little bit, where you quickly open he's going to ask, so you quickly open up the Bible and find a verse here or there that works for the day. But he showed me a Monday to Friday Christianity versus just seeing brothers on like a Sunday or something like that. I got to work with him every single day, and we had great times. Like I have such great memories with Jake. Blessed brother, but he never was pushy. He never did the, "So Riley, when are you going to get saved? Riley, when you," or anything like that.
He kind of just treated you like a brother and then tried to admonish you and encourage you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have anything. I don't have anything bad to say about our relationship. Like, it was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And in my unsaved state, seeing that, wow, so a Christian can be happy every single day, right? And can be rejoicing even when things go bad, right? Or even when there's a tough day, or different things like that, right? So I would definitely say that on my unsaved life, he had a very huge impact in helping me realize, okay, being a Christian is a little bit more than just being good and reading a Bible and asking God for forgiveness whenever you sin, right? And I would definitely say he was very, very instrumental in my.
When shortly after I got saved, he got saved, and John Bamman was before me. I think Jake was maybe a year or two after. I'm not sure now exactly. Mm-hmm. And then another Jake Nelson, his cousin.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Drawing a blank here. Henry Weeb's son. Pastor Henry Weeb's son goes to Vienna too.
I don't know.
John Bamman's friend. I can't believe. Sorry.
Sure, I don't know. Hopefully he's not listening to
no
this,
kidding,
right?
That's crazy. It'll come to me later.
Okay.
But super passionate brothers that just preaching the gospel on the streets, sharing wherever they could, and just it was something that had actually happened in their life, right? They were not trying to live the Christian life. Something had come in to possess them almost, right? Where they were driven now to read and to pray and to search and all that kind of stuff. So. Victor Weeb.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, yeah, there you go. You see Weeb. I'm like, I don't know.
I haven't seen him in so many years.
There you go. Well, it's because he's out in Thailand, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, okay. I remember when all those brothers were doing all those Bible studies, and when I remember being young and being laid at people's houses. That was probably right around that time when they were really going. Obviously I was a lot younger then, but then I remembered, staying up midnight, 1:00. They were having Bible studies, and then all of us kids were just passed out on the floor, right?
So you were working with him, and he's sharing with you like all the way to work, all the way from work, and at the job site he's rejoicing. And
at that job site he's rejoicing. Yeah, even when sometimes it's hot outside and the car AC didn't work, or the windows didn't want to roll down, or Jake's car was a little bit special, and sometimes he would tell me that it taught him patience, because the car kind of had a mind of its own. Sometimes the radio would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes the window would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes the AC would work, sometimes it wouldn't. So. But blessed times with that brother. Yeah. So it would have been around 16 where I went to, our church regularly had, it was yearly, sometimes it was twice a year, that they had tent meetings. And which tent meetings or gospel meetings, we did a couple of them where we set up the big, massive tent at the Elmer Fairgrounds, Voth Sales on 19, there was a couple places and we made them very public, like to anybody in the community who wanted to come as well. And it was at one of those meetings. I don't even remember what was preached or anything like that. Like, I don't even know if it even was if you die tonight you're going to hell kind of message. But I definitely felt very strong conviction, and there was things. Obviously, I had friends in my life who were encouraging me, Riley, like, we're praying for you and different things like that. And where I had just decided, you know what, I'm done trying to.
Was there a recognition in your own mind then that you were not a Christian?
Yes.
You knew it was clear.
Yes, I knew. Yeah, it was very clear to me that I wasn't.
Even before the Jake Nelson, or?
I would say it helped clarify when I was working with Jake, seeing the difference between him and me, but also even before then, like knowing, I know I'm not a Christian. Like I don't think I ever thought, because I was born into a Christian family, I automatically have a straight ticket to heaven. I don't think
And the
I
church
ever felt
you
that.
were attending at the time, and I know we were attended there for some time too, they're very clear on everybody has to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't get exempt. You're not born
again,
into
right?
this.
Yeah.
And there's those meetings, those tent meetings, special meetings, usually are reserved for that idea. Like people out there need to get saved, but hey, there's a bunch of people sitting right here. That
And many times at those meetings, that's what would happen. And even meetings afterwards where we would, like there was even specific youth that we were like, okay, we know that we want to pray for these people. And many times it was a lot of either young people or people in the church who were getting saved at these meetings, right?
Yeah.
So I would have been 16, going on 17, and just realizing, one, that I'm not a Christian. Two, continuing to sin and keep constantly asking for forgiveness eventually gets tiring, and you're like, it was interesting because especially as I started getting older, I definitely started becoming more acute to sin, knowing that I'm sinning, and knowing that just, praying and asking God for forgiveness isn't enough, right? Because I would literally use it as a scapegoat, right? I'm not saying not to do that. It's just like a little tack on thing at the end, and then you're good to go, right? And then you can feel, I don't know, more free to just continue living your unsaved life, right? But so it was at one of those meetings where it was an interesting experience. So it obviously wasn't my wife at the time, but her family was sitting right in front of us, and the preaching hadn't even started, and she had her Bible open, and I'm actually gonna pull up that verse here.
Totally obscure passage.
Yeah, so like literally out of the blue, like there was no. You wonder where this came from. So she just randomly had her Bible open, and I just looked, like kind of leaning forward, looked down, and this verse had jumped out to me. It was in 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 4, and I still remember looking down and seeing this. Now therefore, thus saith the Lord, thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but thou shalt surely die. And I read that verse, and in that moment, I realized complete clarity. If I die tonight, I'm not going to heaven. And realizing, okay, I need to do something about this, right?
Who's that verse about again?
It's about a king. Hold on.
Is that Hezekiah?
Uzziah. King Uzziah.
Interesting, eh? Like a verse that has nothing to do with you, but it's such a living word that it can pierce you right to the dividing asunder.
And I just happened to glance at it, and then all of a sudden it was like it just hit me, and I was like, "Wow, okay, I got to do something about this now." And there was an altar call at the service. I didn't go up. I really wanted to, but I guess that war between the flesh and the spirit was happening there a little bit, and I ended up staying in my seat. But later on that evening, before I went to bed, I mentioned to my mom that I wanted to talk to her a little bit before I went to bed. So she came up into my room, and we prayed together. My mom prayed, I prayed, and I just prayed a simple, and these words like this in a prayer I would have never talked like this to God before. Like I asked Jesus to come into my heart. I asked him to be Lord of my life. I asked him to guide me. I can't remember everything that I all prayed. And my mom's prayer was pretty much, "Thank you, Jesus."
Yeah.
And in that, whether it was in that moment, but see, in that moment, I knew all the stories, but maybe not a full realization of what Jesus had done for me. Maybe not in that moment, but definitely I came to a point of acceptance. I came to a point of Jesus is offering this free gift, and I decided to take it and act upon it, right? And many times after people have let's say had their salvation experience, they talk about some sort of, I felt God's peace, or I felt God's love, or felt God's joy, right? And one thing I had struggled with, especially like, let's say the next couple days, I mean, Jake was sure excited because I was still working for wall to wall at the time, and I told Jake, and he was super excited. There was a couple guys at work, obviously my uncle, a couple other guys. They were all believers there where we were working at the time, and they were all very excited for me. But I was lacking that, and maybe this was just something I had just battled with in my mind, was expecting this salvation experience, right? I mean, I know what the conviction experience was like.
That was pretty clear.
That was pretty clear to me. And to feel now, okay, now what's different? And it actually took about a week until I had realized, you know what? This was a Bible study. We were going to a Bible study. And I just experienced the joy of the Lord. I experienced when Jesus says in John that your joy may be full. That's the perfect way to describe how I felt. And not that I want to base my salvation on feelings, but there's a difference between having God's joy and just being happy. Because I was always a very happy guy.
You were a pretty happy guy.
Yeah, I was a pretty happy guy. I was never, there's some people it's like, oh, he's always a grumpy guy, right? They just have some kind of that personality. Whereas for me, I was always a very happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah. And
definitely experiencing the joy of the Lord was different, right? And that definitely helped me see more clearly. Yes, I am a Christian. Yes, I am loved by God, and now I need to start walking in faith, right? And one of the biggest things that happened when I got saved was I was struggling with pornography before I had gotten saved, and the desire of that completely left. It was like the person who used to smoke and then said he had no desire to smoke. I had no desire for it.
It just was profane.
It was gone.
It was disgusting.
It was gone. I had even when I would think about it, I would immediately get this that was the old me.
Some people don't experience that, even
though
they genuinely get saved.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and people who have experienced alcohol can, even after they get saved, still struggle with that, right? But that was just one of the sins that also made me just have that assurance of, you know what, the Lord is working in my life, right? And ever since then, thank the Lord, ever since then, I know this is probably something a lot of second-generation Christians will struggle with, is the assurance of salvation. So far, I have never struggled with that, where I doubted, did I get saved, did I not get saved? My biggest thing was, if I didn't get saved in that moment, that doesn't matter.
Right.
What am I doing today, right? Am I walking with God today? Am I growing in the Lord today, right? Am I experiencing Him? Am I sharing Him with others? Is He involved in my life today? And if He is, then why would I need to worry about what specific day or time that I came to that point of salvation, right? So I haven't really struggled with that since.
Interesting. I always try to anybody I'm speaking to, but with my children in particular, trying to show them that their salvation is 100% dependent upon Christ. What He did is what pays our way, right? So you can ask people, even when Jesus was on this earth, He lived the life He lived, and He died, and He was raised again, and He went up into heaven. Was He accepted by the Father? Well, of course. Yeah, of course He was accepted. Okay, the Bible says that we are accepted in Him. Well, is He accepted? Yes, of course. Are you accepted? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, I don't know if I'm good enough. No, we are accepted in Him. He did what was good enough.
That's right.
Not us. We're not trying to be good enough to get to heaven. We're not even trying to wonder if He's at work enough in my life. Am I counting on the right thing? Am I banking on His work and not mine, right? That the only way we're getting into heaven is on His coattails.
That's right. Bible clearly says righteousness is filthy rags to Him, right? So anything we try to do in our own strength is nothing to Him.
But even if you don't have that full understanding, like you said, you're 15, 17, something like that. Yeah. And a lot of our children too, they know the gospel from very young on. They know what Christ has done for them, but they're resisting. Then finally they just give in with their will, right? They say, okay, Lord, I'm yours. I'm done resisting You. I'm going to stop fighting the conviction. I'm going to stop, resisting this feeling that I have, and I will serve you, and I'm giving my heart to you. So for me, salvation is more trusting in what Christ has done.
Mm-hmm.
But for some kids, it's like, well, I trust what he's done, but I'm just holding it off for now. So once you finally just accept him as your Lord and Savior, then all of that is applied, right? And so that's the joy you experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And for second generation Christians, I can see that being a struggle where it's like most of the battle happens inside, right? Where like you said, you're struggling with conviction, you're resisting, and then finally you let it go. And a lot of that, it's not necessarily a lot of outward things now that change, but then there's a lot of little small things where it's all of a sudden like, hey, I would have done this, but now I'm not anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, amen. I remember it was probably about 3 years or so after I got saved. I had been rejoicing already, but then I had fallen into I would say like a legalistic mindset where I was trying to perform to gain my confidence and access to God. And so I would get up every morning at 4 a.m.
Okay, I am not a morning person. My dad's a morning person. Bless his heart. I am not a morning person. I'd sooner stay up till midnight than get up at 4.
No, I know, but this was the recipe given me. If you want to be a godly person, you get up at 4. You read 3 to 5 chapters of the Old Testament, 3 to 5 chapters of the New Testament, never less, often more. These were the kinds of things that were preached. Okay. And if you don't pray at least an hour a day alone, you're a joke. And so then I spent a couple of years trying to think, okay, I've got to be this. I want to be a serious Christian.
That'd be stressful.
And it was. And then about 3 or so years into my Christian life, I came across the teaching of our position in Christ, that it's not about what I do. I already knew to get saved, it wasn't about what I did, but my mind had shifted now to thinking, okay, but if I want to stay saved, if I want to be a zealous Christian, if I want to be passionate, then I've got to pursue these things with all of my heart. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying and falling asleep while reading, but I've got to get it in. And if I didn't, there's less joy in my life. Where is my joy coming from then? It's coming from my own works for him when my joy should come from his work for me. So there was about 3 years into my Christian life, I started realizing I'm completely whole in Christ. I'm accepted as much today as I was yesterday. I'm accepted on my worst days when I've messed up. I'm still as accepted as I was on my best days. I'm not accepted because of what I've done. And then I started celebrating too. Like I remember driving North Star forklift. I was driving there and I was just so overcome with joy that I'm squealing to myself. Just, I can't believe this is true. Like this is so good. And the joy of the Lord, just fills you up.
Yeah. When I experience that joy, I like singing. Singing is one of my avenues. The church we're going to now, I'm on a worship team. I love singing. Sometimes even at work, because obviously I work on a computer. And if I know there's not a lot of people home, or if nobody's home, I got my headphones on and I can just sing while I'm working. And then sometimes my sisters have videoed me, and it sounds funny because I'm just singing, and it sounds so when you got the music going on, it sounds so good.
You can't hear yourself.
Yeah, right. It just sounds so good. You're just singing away. And then all of a sudden later, they're just like, "You didn't sound very good." And I'm like, "That's okay. I was having a good time, right? I was taking that joy inside of me and letting that out, right? Yeah. And especially in church, a lot when I'm driving.
But there is really a difference between joy and happiness, isn't there?
Absolutely. Happiness is so temporary.
And you were naturally a happy-go-lucky, kind of positive character.
Yeah.
But now to be filled with joy.
Yeah. And yeah, so after I had gotten saved, experienced that, right? I would definitely say there were things that helped me grow. I was definitely immature. I had lots of growing up to do. But there was a group of guys, I don't know, there was probably about 6 or 7 of us, that we would go out on the Port Burwell rocks, going out on the rocks. I mean, we would get out as early as we could in the year. We would get out there every Tuesday night, and we would go until pretty much it started snowing. Sometimes we even were like, we don't want to we did it even throughout the winter. Like, we would take turns at guys' houses and stuff. But after I got saved, there was probably a group of about 6 or 7 of us that every Tuesday we were out on the rocks, and there's so many blessed times there.
Singing, studying.
Praying. We didn't do much studying. Our biggest thing was sharing with each other. So what we would do is we would get there and we would sing. We might not have sounded very good, and sometimes people walking on the beach, they kind of, because we're out in public, like we're on the rocks, we're on the water, people can hear us sing, and so we would sing a couple songs, and then we would have a time of sharing where sometimes it was, a little verse here, a little verse there of something that either spoke to you, and then the biggest thing was sharing struggles. Things that either prayer requests you had personally for yourself or for other people who you were close to. And then we would pray. Like, I remember so many fond memories of being out there, especially in the summertime when the sky would be full of stars. You hear the water lapping on the rocks, and you've got 5 or 6 guys there, and we are just praying. And fantastic. So many good memories there.
You don't have to obviously mention any specifics, but those guys still rejoicing, walking with the Lord?
I wouldn't say all of them, but most of them.
Nice.
I haven't been in communication. There's especially 2 of them I'm thinking of now that I haven't really been in communication with. But yeah, there are a couple of those who definitely still will, still awesome. Would. And even one that that I'm still actually quite close friends with. And just looking back, is so many fond memories there. Cool. People who had come, then there was people who had come, people who had gone. But yeah, I would definitely say after I'd gotten saved, that was one thing that really helped me grow, very much so. And then another thing that helped me grow was the whole marriage, finding a wife.
You did a weird thing.
Yeah, I know. My girlfriend, fiance, wife experience was quite interesting. So I had liked my wife. So she was the one that was holding the Bible, like in my testimony, that she had the verse. And it was funny, even when I had shared my testimony at church, I had mentioned her name. And at that point, when you have a group of guys, like everybody teases everybody about every girl that comes around, right? And after I had gotten down, I had thought to myself, that was so dumb, because people are going to tease me about her now, right? At that time and point, I didn't necessarily like her.
It wasn't even about her. It was just that verse.
That's right. It had nothing to do with her. It was the Bible and the verse, right? And I had gone down. And I was like, oh shoot, people are gonna tease me now. What did I do? But there wasn't really much of that. But interesting. I don't know if it was necessarily from that, but I had definitely started liking her. And I had just known her parents that they wouldn't have let her date until she was 19. So at this time, I'm right around the 17. She's 16, and I know, and I started liking her. Like, there were times where I actually had to pray and ask God to take feelings away for her, because I was just like, I want to honor her parents. I want to respect her parents, because I know that they won't let her do anything till she's 19. And if I try doing anything before then, I'm just going to wreck this relationship, because I think we both kind of knew we both liked each other, and we had hung out a lot, like in youth.
But no words were ever spoken.
But no words were ever spoken between us. And the Lord taught me so much patience during that time. Like, wow. Like, to literally, it was 3 years of me liking her, not letting her know that I liked her. And then actually, it was probably for about the last year and a bit, I was told that she had communicated to somebody that she liked me. So that just turned it up even more. It's like, okay, she likes me. It's like, what are we going to do, right? But I waited till she was 19. And then even then after that, I had kind of was like, Lord, give me a sign, right? And I had kind of put it out before the Lord, and I had said, she needs to go on a trip. She originally wanted to go to Mexico to an orphanage. It was going to be for like 1 or 2 months. She was going to go help serve there. She had kind of grown up in a family where they didn't do a lot of traveling. So for her, she was kind of like, I want to go and experience something before I get married. Right? Wink, wink, nod, nod. So I told the Lord, I said, she needs to go on a trip first. And when she goes on a trip, that'll be my release to go and talk to her dad.
Yeah.
And randomly, out of the blue, so I would have turned 20 in June. She turned 20 in September of 2020, because I was born in 2000. And then out of the blue in October, so she came up to me and she's like, so I'm going to be leaving on a trip. And I'm like, excuse me? She's like, it was just random, out of the blue. I said, where are you going? And she had said she was going out to BC. There was some church family that they were affiliated with out there, and she said she was going out to BC. A little bit of a different trip than what she wanted to do. She wanted to do something a little more mission-minded, But obviously, I found out afterwards she went out there because she had strong feelings towards me.
She needed a little break.
And she wanted a little break to kind of get a little breather, just like, okay. And in that time, she said, while she was in BC, the Lord had confirmed to her that I was the one for her. And yeah, as soon as she was gone, I texted her dad and I said, let's go over breakfast. Like, of course, any dad who's got a young guy, he has the young girl and he's got a young guy asking to go out for breakfast, you know what's going to happen, right? And yeah, we went out for breakfast and I told him, I'm like, yeah, I would really like to start a relationship with your daughter. And he's like, oh, okay, you want to, like, you know, springtime? Like, no. I said, when she gets back, I want you to ask her.
I've been praying my feelings away for 3 years here.
I am ready to start. And so yeah, pretty much as soon as
I don't know if you probably don't quite realize how monumental or weird that is. Like 16-year-olds don't restrain their feelings. They don't pray about them and say, God, take this away. Let me be patient. Mm-hmm. They say, well, she's right there.
I will say her brother also, which was my best friend, like growing up, we did everything together.
Yeah.
He definitely helped keep me straight sometimes. Because I definitely had some times where the feelings did get away a little bit, and I wanted to do crazy things, and then he was just like, "What are you thinking? No, you're not going to buy her flowers on Valentine's Day. That is not what you do, right? When you're trying to, right?" But in the moment, I'm like, "Oh, but I want to so badly."
Interesting.
Right? So yeah, he definitely helped keep me straight there sometimes. But yeah, like.
But that's a very different culture. That first of all, that you would respect her and her parents enough to say, okay, I recognize you're raising your daughter, and for me to have the permission to get to know her is monumental. It's quite a big step, right? Like, especially once you're a dad of a little girl now, right?
Which I am.
Hey, I'm raising this girl. You can't just come in and take her. A lot of guys, they'll still go through that, like, just as a procedure almost, right? They'll start dating a girl, and then when they really want to get serious, they'll go talk to the dad, like, hey, I'd like to marry your daughter. That's kind of what I did. And it's like, okay, but you're already with her.
Too late now, right?
You know, you're already
I can't break you guys
on
up
the
now.
road. What if I say no? What are you going to do? Like, you know?
Well, and then of course the young man's like, well, I'm still going to get to know her,
getting
right?
married anyway.
It's more of a formality,
right?
This
is a formality only.
Yeah, whereas I guess I just, in my mind, and again, me always being tenderhearted and things like that.
And it's the culture you were in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would think that for sure. Maybe not necessarily Mennonite, but definitely the church we were attending.
For sure.
That was
it was not a Mennonite thing.
Yeah, would be definitely something that was very much encouraged. So started a relationship with her, and and
her dad gave you the go ahead.
Yeah, dad gave me dad had said he was going to talk to her.
Her dad, okay.
Yeah, her dad said he was going to talk to her. He talked to her, gave me a call when she got back, and said, obviously my daughter said yes, and of course I'm just like, yeah, that's fantastic, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was right around end of November, December when we started a relationship, like a public relationship, where we were actually letting people know that we were courting, is what we called it. Courting, dating, it's kind of the same thing, but hands-off relationship.
Yeah.
And again, that was something that I don't think is Mennonite, but definitely the church we were attending, that was something that would have been encouraged at least to do a hands-off courtship.
Well, the Apostle Paul says it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, right? So that's where that idea comes from. Like, don't touch girls unless you're going to get married. Then go for it, right?
Yeah. So, a hands-off relationship. We started our relationship in December. I asked her to marry me in February on Valentine's Day. And we got married in June, but that was
all in 2020.
All in 2020, and all during COVID-19.
That's crazy.
And that, I tell you, that stretched me. Man, wow, yeah. Especially since pretty much right after I had asked her to marry me, that's when COVID really started cracking down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, February, March.
And there was major turmoil, not just only in my personal relationship with me and my wife, but also in my Christian life, because at that time, during COVID, the church we were attending was experiencing quite a bit of difficulties with do you listen? I think every church experienced this. Like, how do we deal with these rules now, right? And through all that, being in a relationship with my fiance, there actually was a time there where we were even social distancing from each other. Like, we were sitting outside 6 feet apart. And that was rough. Anybody who's been in any kind of relationship, so not only are we hands off, we were sitting 6 feet apart from each other. And again, that was me trying my utmost to respect her parents.
What a weird time.
And yeah, but I mean, even that time was just,
it was weird for
strange
everybody,
time.
but that's crazy that you ended up in a group where not only did the church kind of divide over it and other issues, but even right there, your two families and you and your girlfriend, fiance.
Oh man, it was rough. After we got married, because of the issues and things like that happened during our relationship, I began to harbor major bitterness towards family that was causing these issues. Like especially during the wedding, I think we redid our wedding like 3 or 4 times. Where we were going to do it, how we were going to do it, who was all invited. The day that Doug Ford actually allowed 10 people in a group was like the day before my wedding. We were going to have 5. So then 2 days before we found an extra 5 people to, okay, now we can have more people, right? Because there was going to be very important people in the from family who were not going to come to the wedding if we weren't going to obey the rules. And that's hard. It's very, very hard. And so yeah, regrettably, I got major bitterness towards some individuals where I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to talk to them. And it was probably, like, I was talking to my wife, it was probably actually closer to almost 2 years where we didn't even see them.
So the first couple of years of your marriage were not rocky between you, but rocky towards family.
Family members, yeah. And it was... Yeah, I definitely harbored bitterness, and anybody who's experienced bitterness knows that maybe in the moment you don't realize it, but then it slowly starts eating away at you, and then you get to the
almost
point
gratifying.
Where all of a sudden there's things going on. It's like, yeah, they deserve that,
That's right.
or whatever,
and you
right?
feel justified.
Absolutely, and yeah, so I definitely harbored some bitterness there that the Lord needed to work on me, and during that time of me being bitter and experiencing, there was definitely some issues going on at the church that we were at. During COVID, the church ended up splitting. It went 3 different ways. And that just, not only now was I experiencing bitterness that I may have not even acknowledged at the time, but now my Christian life kind of got turned upside down, because what had happened was I had gotten saved in the church, and a lot of my core Christian beliefs were based on, oh, this is what the church thinks, so that's what I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And why question it? Why do I even need to question it, right? But then all of a sudden you start making your own family unit, and then it's like, okay, wait, what do I believe with this? What do I believe about this? And maybe it's not, lose your salvation questions, but there are definitely things that affect your day-to-day life. And for me, the church at the time, the church had split 3 different ways. And
people you respect and appreciate,
and
on
that's
all
the
3
problem.
sides.
People, like literally, people who I had good relationships with on all 3 sides, all went everywhere. And that just made me so confused. So I stuck kind of with the core group that kind of stayed. But then after that split, there was definitely some things. The church was changing, some things going on at that time. There was definitely things where they were trying to find their, I guess what you could say, their identity, or what they stood for now, because the groups kind of all separated. So now it's like, now where do we stand, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of things going on, a lot of things that were focusing, at least for me, and again, in my view, on the outward. And I'm a Christian in that moment, struggling with bitterness, now realizing that there's a lot of people I respected who can't agree. And now I'm supposed to be careful on what I wear or how I dress or different things. Like now when I'm going to church, and I'm like, I don't
Where's
want this.
the heart of this?
I don't want this. And so it left me and my wife in a state of, we were a little bit lost. There was quite a few times where we either didn't go to church, or we just were like, where do we want to go to church this Sunday? We had visited quite a few churches during that time. We went to Beacon a couple times. We went to Springfield actually a couple times. We had visited the other groups as well. And then we had gone, because at that time, my family, so Adam and Megan, Eob and Ash, and Joe and Amy would have all been at Tillsonburg Alliance Church. And we went and visited there once, and because of the way I was grown up, I walked into the church and I told my wife, we can't go to a church like this, because all I did was judge them as soon as I walked in. Because I'm like, this is different, this is different, this is different, right?
A good Christian wouldn't look like that.
I can't. Well, not even that. Like, even during the church service, like, for me, it was completely strange to have, I wouldn't say song, because I was used to song leading, right? But I walked in and there's a lady at the front with a group of people leading worship. And I was mind blown. I'm like, I can't stay at a church like this. And this is not that it was wrong. In my mind, because I was, again, so used to either, like, men being in and pretty much doing anything involved in the church. It was like, I remember getting into the vehicle and saying, sweetie, we can't go to a church like this. Like, right? But then later on that year, the Tillsonburg Alliance Church had tent meetings of their own. And I experienced, and I even think you preached at
I preached twice
Yeah,
there,
you preached at those. I experienced a place where I saw the Holy Spirit move in a place that was not in church, not in my church. And I was, sometimes when you grow up in a church your whole life and you're like, I wonder if there's, if anybody's a Christian. Why wouldn't they come to my church, right?
It's a pretty exclusive church, right?
Yeah.
I know for us, we always felt that to go there, it costs something.
Mm-hmm.
Most churches you can just go to and everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. But if you go to that one, like, you are really cutting ties. And so you grew up in a church that was pretty exclusive. Like, we have things different here than most churches do. We're more
not
serious,
necessarily wrong,
more
but
passionate.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the most zealous Christians
absolutely.
I knew.
Oh, 100%. But I went to and again, used to gospel meetings, right? Like, from what I was growing up in, I got saved at one. And now all of a sudden seeing the Holy Spirit work in a different church style than what I was used to was like, wow. Like, I really had to chew on that. And I was like, the Lord works here as well. Like, and I know obviously he does, but in that moment for me, because I experienced it and I saw people get saved, and wow, that was mind-blowing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since those meetings, we started attending the Tillsonburg Church. And actually, it was the pastor there at the time who helped me and my wife overcome the bitterness I had towards some of the family.
Had you recognized it already at this point?
Yes, because my wife got to the point where she wouldn't even, not even offer to invite them over or anything like that, because she knew I did not want to see them. And I started acknowledging that I had an issue towards them. At some times, maybe if there was a message like preached on unforgiveness or bitterness or things like that, I would definitely feel that heart pounding a little bit, and then it'd be like, no, I can't.
They should come to me.
That's right. I literally felt like they were the ones who owed me the apology, but I ended up needing to owe them the apology because I got bitter. And we sat down with the pastor and his wife a couple times, and he really helped me and my wife understand that we needed to let it go. And we ended up having these family over. We completely opened up to them, explained to them how we felt during the situation, and completely got to release that bitterness. Like, we asked for their forgiveness, they asked for our forgiveness, and I mean, since then, our relationship with them has been like
at the time, it felt irreparable.
Absolutely. Like,
there's no way
I literally thought there's like, in my mind the entire time, my thought was always, they need to come and ask me for, like, right? Because they wronged me. That's what I felt like. I don't need to go ask them for forgiveness. But because I felt that way, I became bitter. And then I ended up needing to confess in my own heart to God. Mm-hmm. And then now, because I had shunned them, I needed to go and
what
ask
a lesson
for
in that. Like, even if, let's say, I've often used this in marriage. Let's say you're having a tiff with your wife and you're just really frustrated, and she's to blame. Mm. She did something wrong, and you have every right to be upset. If I start to say, okay, well, maybe give myself 10% of the blame. What if I would have done this different or hadn't said that? Very quickly it starts feeling like, no, it's probably more like 20 or 30%. No, the more I think about this, it might have been more like 50-50. And then very quickly in my mind, if I allow myself to be that honest, where all of a sudden it's like, no, I could have stopped this whole thing. It wouldn't have needed to happen this way.
Right.
Even though, of course, she can be to blame for some things. And of course, the people probably did wrong you. But to recognize your own wrong and go to them and say, look, here's where I was wrong, is probably often the ball that gets...
And I definitely think the Lord used the pastor there. Like, I 100 believe that the Lord put him there to help me. Like, him and his wife were so huge in helping me see that I was actually the one that needed to go and ask them for forgiveness. It completely changed my view on how I felt towards them, right? And definitely since then, I'm still walking with the Lord. I depend on Him. Being a dad is something that I really did not feel prepared for. I don't think any dad is ready to be a dad until it comes, right?
Yeah.
And
your daughter's 4?
My daughter's 4, and I have a son coming in, Lord willing. I have a son coming in July.
Oh, praise the
Lord. So I'm excited to be a girl dad, and now I'm gonna have a son as well. Mm-hmm. I definitely feel like that is the biggest place where I am lacking is, Lord, I need help being a dad, right? Mm-hmm. But I love it.
What did you read in the Bible this morning?
So this morning I read no, and I can tell you it's fine. James, I'm actually trying to memorize James chapter 1.
Okay.
So my brother-in-law told me a very interesting way to read the Bible, and I never thought about this before until he mentioned this to me. He said, Riley, what is the point of reading 3 chapters and not remembering what you read? Mm-hmm. I said, nothing. He goes, what did the pastor preach this Sunday? And I had to and then it took me a little bit to actually recall what he preached. Mm-hmm. He said, so what's the point of that if you don't remember it? I'm like, I guess really there isn't. So he said, well, what if instead of, I want to get through the book of Proverbs in 1 week, how about you read Proverbs chapter 1 for a whole week? Yep. Then all of a sudden, it means something to you. And then when somebody asks you, it's not, what did I read? You already know through this entire week, you've been reading Proverbs chapter 1 or whatever you're reading. And then obviously he encouraged me. It's like, and then whatever you can memorize during that time is the best, right?
Yeah. It's the same thing when I've done book studies. You read that book again and again and again and again. Then you start digging into the verses and how they fit into context. You look at this word and that
I've
word.
I've been loving what you've been doing with Hebrews. I love it. I'm as soon as Hebrews is done, I'm excited for the next book that you're going to pick. I really like how you sometimes you don't even get through one verse, but you're
it's
really
only 5 minutes. I'm trying to squeeze
I know, and sometimes I'm like, I see the time, I'm like 5:01 or 5:02. I'm like, 2 seconds over, right? That's all right. But no, I'm really appreciating how you do that and there's definitely brothers who are more gifted in that than I am for going really deep and expounding some of those things. I really appreciate what you've been sharing on Hebrews. And so obviously for me, I read James chapter 1 this morning. So nice, I passed the Jake Nelson test.
There you go.
There you go.
And you said you're pretty involved in the church. What do you do there now? Worship team?
Yeah, so I'm a worship team. I also am in the sound booth. And I just signed up to be an usher / me and my wife also being greeters at the front.
Okay.
I have had my opportunity to. This was last December. I had my opportunity to actually share my testimony in church, which was a big blessing. They were looking for people to share their testimony, and of course my wife. And it wasn't supposed to be anything long. Like obviously we've been here for quite a while. I only had about 5-10 minutes, so it was a really compressed version.
Squeeze that together.
But definitely. Have been really enjoying going to the church we are now. I feel like I've been growing spiritually. I've been getting to know a lot of people because when you start going to a church, you go in and you're like, I don't know anybody, right? But now when you walk into the church and you're like morning, and everybody's asking how your week's been, asking what's going on. We've been invited to a couple people's houses already for meals, which definitely just shows that they actually want to get to know me, right? Mm-hmm. And they value me. They value that I'm there. Especially when we had just joined the church, they kind of went through a little bit of a hard time, losing a pastor. And right now we're actually looking for another one. We have a temporary pastor right now, but we are looking for a full-time pastor to come take over the church. And just even in that time of a little bit of confusion, where we stuck with the church and people there have just been like, it's been great. I really enjoy going to church there.
Even those difficult times can kind of bind you together, right?
Absolutely. No, 100%. 100%.
That's cool. Right on. Well, I appreciate you sharing. Look at that. less than an hour.
Very nice. There we go.
We are really restrained.
No, I can talk a lot. I had to tell myself, it's like, let Dan do the talking and right. So because I have no issue talking.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot more we could share on, right? So
but I appreciate you asking me. Hopefully, my heart would be that this testimony would be an encouragement to somebody. Like I said, some testimonies will reach out to certain people more than others. But yeah, my heart is definitely that it would be an encouragement to someone. And yeah, especially for somebody who may be even struggling with assurance of salvation or different things like that, right? Like some of the things we touched on, I think were really, really good.
Yeah, right on. Good stuff. Thanks, man.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem.